It happened, everyone. Football season is back this week. Hall of Fame game finally happens, which means we are only around a month, a little bit over a month, but a month away from the first football game of the season, which we all know is Baltimore Ravens versus the Kansas City Chiefs. When football comes out, so does Madden. Madden likes to do ratings. They came out with their ratings. I felt like they were pretty interesting. So let's talk about it. So Madden has already released 2 position groups, technically 3, and I'm going to be talking about them because Baltimore Ravens players are discussed, and I feel like there's interesting points to be made about them. So I'm going to start with today's news, which is the wide receivers, the top 10 wide receivers. Unfortunately, I think we all know this. The Baltimore Ravens do not have a top 10 wide receiver on this list, but for anyone interested, you can go look up. It's on easports.com. You can just look up Madden ratings. It'll have the whole list of all the players, but the player I want to talk about is Zay Flowers, because Zay Flowers is given an 85 overall, which I think is very respectful. I'm very happy with that as a Ravens fan, as a avid Madden player. I'm very happy with that. But the thing that was really intriguing was then I saw Puka Nacua as an 84, and I kept looking, and I'm like, oh, Jordan Addison's like an 82. Tank Dell isn't an 85. JSN isn't an 85. And I'm like, wait a minute. Zay Flowers is the highest rated rookie from last year's draft class, which I think is something that's really interesting because I don't think the national media really gave recognition to how good of a season Zay Flowers had, because statistically, he's not someone that's going to blow you away because of the system that he is in. He plays for the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens are a run first team. He's not going to get a lot of yards and he's not going to get a lot of touchdowns. What you need to look at with him is yards after the catch. You need to look at his separation and ability to get open, which he does a very good job of. I think his shiftiness, elusiveness, and quickness allows him to separate very well. And that's what led to Lamar Jackson quickly establishing that great chemistry that he ended up having with him. I remember a couple weeks into the year, we faced the Cincinnati Bengals and Lamar hit him for like a 60-yard pass. Didn't score on it because it was double coverage, but it was like, okay, that's when I realized Zay Flowers and Lamar Jackson are a true dynamic duo. Now, if you guys are interested in, okay, Zay Flowers in 85, who else is an 85? I was looking through. So Chris Godwin, I think, is an 85. Christian Kirk is an 85. Garrett Wilson is an 85. T. Higgins is an 85. So in Madden's sense, right, in their belief, now, again, I want to specify this. Madden is not the best. Madden, I wouldn't even classify as good when it comes to ratings. But it's nice to see some recognition from any facet of media talking about Ravens players in a positive way. So this is not end all be all. This is the finite rankings like that, or finite rankings. That's not it. What this is, hey, some people are giving some credit to the Baltimore Ravens wide receivers. But in their belief, right, Garrett Wilson is, nobody questions whether or not the Green Bay Packers, or not the Green Bay Packers, I was thinking Aaron Rodgers, the New York Jets have a good enough wide receiver core, right? Because they're like, oh, they have a one. They have Garrett Wilson. And yet, when you look at the Ravens, according to Madden, again, it's Madden, who cares? But the Ravens have, I think Zay Flowers needs to be looked at as a number one. Not because he's going to be a 1,500-yard player, but because, one, our primary pass catcher isn't wide receiver. It's our tight end, Mark Andrews. So in reality, even though he's our number one wide receiver, he's our number 2 pass catcher. And he's up there with the rest of the league. If you look at number 2 pass catchers in your team's offense, I'd put Zay Flowers up there with almost any of them in the league, right? And you look at the rankings, and he's right up there with a guy like T. Higgins. I think Deebo Samuel's a little bit higher. Him and Ayuk are, I think Ayuk is top 10. Deebo's just outside of the top 10. So like that's a duo that's better, right? Devontae Smith is a little bit higher. But overall, like Zay Flowers is looked at as a top 5 number 2 pass catching option in the NFL. And I think that's recognition that we need to recognize. Because again, it doesn't happen very often where they speak positively about the Baltimore Ravens receiving core and receiving weapons. And instead it's like, oh, we need to get Lamar Jackson more help. I think we're at a time where could he use more help? Absolutely. Anybody could. But it's not in a dire situation where it's if Lamar doesn't get help, he's going to leave. I think he has sufficient help to win a Super Bowl. We're going to have to see how the team plays and obviously knock on wood over here, stay healthy. But I think we're in a really good spot going into the season. And when you look at the wide receivers that the Ravens have, not just with Zay Flowers, like I think that, Rashad Bateman is a really solid player. Obviously, pass catcher Isaiah Likely is a great. He's clearly the best number 2 tight end in the league. I would go as far to say is he's probably a top 10 tight end in the league. The issue is we also have Mark Andrews, who's also really good. So we don't see him as much. But when he stepped in, it was very clear that Isaiah Likely was a great tight end in the National Football League. He's just behind another great tight end. But that's talking about the positives. Now, the other position, I said it's kind of 2 positions. They released the safeties. They classified them as free safety, strong safety. I'm just going to talk safeties because in reality, most teams don't designate one player to be a free safety or a strong safety or a box safety. It really depends. Some teams use strong safety over the top. Some use free safety. It's very different from the traditional sense because safeties get moved all over the place. So I want to talk about the top 10 list, and I'm going to go down the list. All right. Because obviously the Ravens have some great safeties. They're looked at as one of the best secondaries in the league, led by, 2 elite safeties in the NFL. So number 1 is Jesse Bates at 97 overall. Number 2 is Antoine Winfield Jr., 94 overall. Number 3, Minkah Fitzpatrick, 93 overall. Number 4 is Derwin James, 91 overall. Number 5, Tyrann Mathieu, 91 overall. Number 6, Budda Baker, 90 overall. 7, Kevin Byard, 89 overall. Are you guys sensing the same thing I am? Because now we get to Kyle Hamilton at an 89 overall. Then it's Javon Holland, Hufanga from the 49ers, Harrison Smith, Jordan Poyer, and then Marcus Williams. That's really surprising to me. Now, I will say Madden has a tendency to rate the people that they are associated with more higher. So if you didn't know, when Derwin James was out for the year, he was very integrated with Madden and the competitive Madden scene. I believe he was a guest commentator, or he was part of the broadcast crew for the Madden Bowl or one of the big Madden tournaments. So they're very familiar with Derwin James. He's a huge advocate of Madden. So I feel like with him, they like to give him his props. Similar with Tyrann Mathieu. They love Tyrann Mathieu. But let's be honest. Tyrann Mathieu is not prime Tyrann Mathieu. He's a player that is aging. He's not a terrible player by any means, but he is not looked at and shouldn't be looked at as a modern elite safety in today's game. In his prime, absolutely, he was elite. But having him over Kyle Hamilton is ridiculous, in my opinion. Same with Kevin Byard. Kevin Byard has an all-pro season at safety for the Tennessee Titans. But I just think it's really weird that Kyle Hamilton, a player that from players, from basically all facets of the media, commentators, broadcasters, when you're watching the Ravens, right? I think more than anyone else on that defense, Kyle Hamilton stands out. I think even more than Roquan. I think him and Roquan, you could argue Roquan, but I think you hear Kyle Hamilton's name in the run game. You hear it in the pass game. You hear it in the screen game. He blitzes. He does literally anything you can ask a safety to do. He can cover a wide receiver one-on-one. He did it against Ja'Marr Chase. He can cover a tight end one-on-one. He's done a very good job. Now, obviously, he didn't have a great first half in the AFC Championship game against Travis Kelce, but we can't go out there and say he was getting cooked because he was draped all over Kelce. That was just, good offense beats great defense every time, right? That's just one of those situations. And Kyle Hamilton is one of the biggest playmakers in the league at the safety position. He's one of the most dynamic players in the league, regardless of position. And for him to be given an 89 overall, which is, again, 8 overalls lower than a guy like Jesse Bates, who I think Jesse Bates is good. I don't have an issue with Jesse Bates. But Kyle Hamilton is, I've said this before, I'll say it again. I think he's the clear-cut best safety in the NFL. And him just getting lower because he only really has the one season of production is kind of ridiculous, because his rookie year, he did not play very much. And that was because Chuck Clark had the mic and we couldn't take Chuck Clark off the field. But when Kyle Hamilton came in, we all knew right away that he was elite. Like, it was not a question of like, oh, we can't play Kyle Hamilton as rookie. It was like, no, he's clearly better than Chuck Clark. We just have to have Chuck Clark out there. We ended up trading Chuck Clark away for, it was a 6th or 7th round pick. I believe it was a 6th rounder. And then it was like, oh, yeah, Kyle Hamilton clearly stands out from Marcus Williams. And Marcus Williams was looked at as, a top 10 safety in the league. Now, Marcus Williams is coming off of an injury. I don't dislike the 85 overall rating for him. I think that's pretty fair. I think that's probably about what I would give him. But when I'm looking at the top safeties in the league, I'm looking at, I think Kyle Hamilton is 1. I think number 2 would be healthy Derwin James. And number 3, healthy Minkah Fitzpatrick. I think those are kind of my top 3. And then I would have Antoine Winfield and Kevin Byard. Like, that would be my top 5. But I think they got it really in a weird order because Kyle Hamilton is such a great playmaker. And the other thing that's funny about it is Madden has these things called X factors. So great players get X factors, they're special abilities, right? Kyle Hamilton has an X factor. He is seen as that type of player. Kevin Byard, who's rated above him, does not. Budda Baker, who's rated above him, does not. Tyrann Mathieu, who's rated above him, does not. Minkah Fitzpatrick, who's rated above him, does not. Antoine Winfield Jr., who's rated above him, does not. Like, they see him as this X factor and they give him these abilities, and then it's like, oh, but overall, like, he just makes these crazy plays, but he's not actually that good. Kyle Hamilton's probably the smartest safety in the NFL. If not, he's probably in the top 3. There's guys like Harrison Smith who are vets that have more experience, but Kyle Hamilton, incredibly fast processor, great with the ball in the air, great against the run. He's a true do-it-all safety. But I honestly wonder if maybe they didn't want his overall to be too high purely because in Madden he'd be so good at 6'4". Safeties is what people play as the most on defense. And so honestly, I'm wonder if almost they're like, we don't want to make him too overpowered. I have to call into question, like, maybe that's the reasoning. But let me know in the comment section down below your guys' thoughts. Again, I think I'm really happy that I would probably not put Zay Flowers as the best receiver from the class. I think I would put him 2. I would put Puka above him because Puka had just such a great rookie season. But I definitely think Zay Flowers could end up going down as the best receiver from this class. And I do like that he's being given his respect as a number 1 receiver, being an 85 overall. That's very respectable. But then Kyle Hamilton, it's really strange to me that even though he only has like 1 full season of production, he played his rookie year and was really good. Hopefully throughout the season, he changes people's minds, but let me know in the comment section down below your guys' thoughts and opinions. If you want more videos on more ratings when they come out, let me know. I don't have to do them. I'll probably only do them if they're interesting, but I'm excited to see what Lamar gets. I'm excited to see what Roquan gets. I'm excited to see what like Brandon Stevens gets. Like, obviously Marlon's cool, but I want to see how they respect Brandon Stevens last year because he had a very good season. And then Isaiah Likely as well. Just very curious to see where they rank them because Madden is one of the very few, it's really the only place where you get to see truly how they value everything, right? Because PFF, they'll put out a list that, Pro Football Network will put out a list. ESPN puts out a list. The NFL 100 exists. But Madden, you get to see, hey, this is what they put for speed. This is what they put for zone coverage. Not necessarily saying it's correct, but it's nice to see the opinion of someone on each of these smaller aspects. If you guys are interested, go check out, EA.com. I wish this was sponsored, but it's not. Go check it out. See the stats. Let me know what you think. Thank you all for watching. Subscribe for more, and I'll see you again tomorrow.